Hello, hello. Make sure this is on. Hey, Spruce Society. So excited to be here. If anyone is watching, if you could just put a little hello in the text box, just so I know you guys can see me. Okay. Pretty sure. Says live and I see little bubbles. Okay, I think we are good to go, so I will go ahead and get started. And if this isn't working, I'm sure Brianna or somebody will text me and say, where are you? Charla, I see you. Okay, cool. Now I know we're working. I feel much better. Hey everyone. So my name is Wendy. Most of you, if you know me, if you follow me on Instagram or you're part of my Young Living team, which is part of the amazing Spruce Society, I go by Wendy Kathryn on social media and on the internet. I am so excited to be here today. I was asked to come and talk to you guys about toxin-free sunscreen swaps. And I'll apologize ahead of time because this is a talk that I give that I usually have slides. And I figured out about 5 minutes ago that this would just be a Facebook Live and it wouldn't be a Zoom and I couldn't use slides, but that's okay. I'll just wing it. It'll be fine. So a little bit of background on me. I am an environmental toxins lawyer. And what that means is basically that I work for the government and I review regulations or legislation and I lobby on anything that would regulate a toxin or an ingredient in our water, our air, our products, anything like that. So I spend my days working on the regulations of toxins in our environment. So that's why I'm environmental toxins lawyer, but I guess I get asked a lot, like, what exactly do you do? That's what I do. The other thing that I do is I have my amazing Young Living business that I love so much, and I share about toxin-free living. And I also have a podcast called The Detox Dilemma, where I talk a lot about holistic living and toxin-free living for real life. And I think that the idea and the topic of sunshine and how important sunlight is and wearing toxin-free products is super, super important. So let's talk about sunscreen and sunshine and vitamin D and all of the things, because I don't think you can talk about those things separately. Those are all things that all come together. So sunshine is basically our life. Like, humans evolved under the sun, and so many things that happen in our bodies, our endocrine system, all of our hormones, our circadian rhythm, our immune system, all of our cells all over our body have vitamin D and sunshine receptors on them. And so I always say to people, we're basically plants with a lot of feelings. And it's true, it's super true. There's so many people out there that think that avoiding the sun at all costs and being covered in head to toe in SPF is good for them because they're super afraid of melanoma and getting skin cancer. And so before I jump into when you should and what kind of ingredients you should look for in toxin-free sunscreen, I also think it's really important to tell you that if you're not getting unblocked sunshine on your skin every day, you're actually increasing your risk of all-cause mortality, including 16 different cancers. So while you don't want to burn, you do want to make sure you're going outside unblocked, even if it's just morning sun, for at least 15 minutes, and making sure that you are getting all of the health benefits that come with having sunshine on your skin. Now, you don't want to burn, so that's why we're here talking about sunscreen. I live in Northern Virginia on a lake, and it is 80 degrees and beautiful, and it is lake weather, and it is summertime, and everyone is really excited. And while I do spend a lot of my morning outside without sunblock on, you better believe that when I'm out on that boat for hours at a time and I'm hanging out and I'm swimming, I'm protecting my skin from getting burned, and that's really important. And just as a side note, some things that people think are myths but are actually true. If you want to help your skin from burning, try to avoid seed oils. So those oils that are high in omega-6s like canola oil, vegetable oil, try to kick them out of your diet. And also don't wear sunglasses. And I know people think that that is an old wives' tale. It's actually not. When sun rays go into your eyes and hit all the receptors that are back there, it actually triggers a hormone response in your skin and your body to protect you from UV. So try it. You might be surprised how well it works. Definitely something I do. I ditched my sunglasses a really long time ago. Okay, so now you know. You probably already knew. If you're in this group, you probably are fairly holistic and you already know that sunshine is really good for you. So let's talk about what's in sunscreen and some of the controversy surrounding sunscreen in general. So I think that it's common knowledge that there is chemical sunscreen and there is physical sunscreen. And I'll just really quickly tell you the difference between the two. So chemical sunscreens use chemicals, ingredients that are active that lay on your skin and get absorbed into your skin. And what they do is when the sun and the UV rays hit your skin, those active ingredients absorb them in so that they don't damage your skin. Physical sunscreens are the kind that lay on top of your skin, and the molecules in those ingredients physically block and reflect the UV radiation off of your skin. So those are two different ways that those sunscreens worked. And for a really, really long time, the FDA and everyone else said chemical sunscreens are safe. Everybody should use them. Everybody should wear them. And I think that places like Hawaii and Florida, a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, when they started banning chemical sunscreens because of their impacts on reefs, I think that's really when people started waking up a little bit to, wait a minute, what is actually in these chemical sunscreens that are so bad for the oceans? Could they be bad for us too? And then 2019 came around and the FDA actually put out a rule, it wasn't quite a rulemaking, but they basically put out a statement that said, we have some evidence to believe that the active ingredients in chemical sunscreens are, not only do we have science that shows they absorb really quickly into our bloodstream, but even putting active chemical sunscreens on your skin one time, those active ingredients remain in your bloodstream weeks later. So they said two things in their report. They said, we're highly concerned with how absorbent these active ingredients are. We're super concerned that they stay in your blood and in your body for so long after a single use. And here's the big one. We have no safety studies showing what these things do or don't do to our bodies. And so they directed the sunscreen manufacturers and they said, you have 1 year to go produce the scientific studies that shows us that these ingredients, even though they're absorbed into our bloodstream and they found it in our urine, our breast milk, it goes right into our bodies, show us that it's safe and there's no negative health effects of it. So that was in 2019. It is now 2023. That has not been done. The manufacturers have not produced a single drop of science showing that it's safe. They've asked the FDA for multiple extensions. And a lot of people don't realize this. The FDA, even with the law that just gave them a little bit more power and authority, that much, they actually can't do anything about this. So they can request that these manufacturers provide safety studies. They can't make them. Right? I think a lot of people think the FDA has way more power than they actually have to regulate industry at all whatsoever, personal care products specifically. So the manufacturers have not produced anything, but the rest of the scientific community has produced lots of papers showing that all of these active ingredients, and I do have a list here in case you're turning over your sunscreen and you're taking a look at what the active ingredients are, this is how you know. And sometimes it's tricky because they will say on there that there's zinc and that it's a mineral sunscreen, but they'll still add in those chemical sunscreen components. So you'll look for oxybenzone, octinoxate, octisalate, octocrylene, homosalate, and avobenzone. And I'll go ahead and write them in the description of this. When I'm done, I'll go back and fill it in so you can take a look at it. So they haven't done that. And the other thing that the FDA put in that paper back in 2019 is they said the only 2 ingredients that we can deem are actually safe to use in sunscreens are the minerals, zinc oxide, and titanium dioxide. That's what the FDA said. In 2019, the FDA said these are the only 2 ingredients that we can say are actually safe. Now, in my opinion, that should have been the end of people buying chemical sunscreens. But if you go looking around at stores, they are still the primary sunscreen that you will find on shelves. I actually went to my local grocery store and I looked on the shelves, and the entire, you know how it's summertime, so they're out there, right in front on the aisles. I found one sunscreen that was just a mineral sunscreen. And even that mineral sunscreen had other toxins in it that I'll talk about in a second. So zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. I get asked a lot about titanium dioxide because, for those of you that know me well and follow me, I talk about how titanium dioxide in food and in tampons is highly toxic. But here's the difference when we're talking about makeup, cosmetics, or sunscreen. When you put something on your skin, the size of the particles of titanium dioxide are so large, they don't penetrate your skin. So they don't actually absorb into your bloodstream. They sit right on top of your skin and work the way that they are supposed to. So from a toxicity perspective, using titanium dioxide in makeup, I know that a lot of people use mineral makeup that also has titanium dioxide in it. That's okay. And in sunscreen, it's also okay. So that's the difference between those 2 things. So fast forward after the FDA in 2019 said all of this to 2020. And many of you probably recall there have been tons of sunscreen recalls because of the presence of benzene. Benzene is a highly toxic carcinogen that causes cancer. And the thing is, when you look at the sunscreens that were recalled, voluntarily, by the way, because the FDA is not allowed to require these companies to actually recall their products, an independent lab using independent funds went and collected sunscreen from the shelves of multiple popular retailers, took them to a lab and tested them, and found a large percentage of them contained benzene. Again, highly carcinogen, it's cancer causing. So he made his results public and he notified the companies that were making these sunscreens, and they voluntarily recalled those lots. This has now happened multiple times over the last 3 years where benzene has been found as a contaminant in these sunscreens. Every single one of the companies that owns sunscreen brands that were being recalled and that had the benzene have claimed that benzene is not an ingredient in the sunscreen, which I believe them. It's not an added ingredient. It is created as a byproduct of the manufacturing process because so many of these chemical sunscreens are made in other places and they don't have quality control over their ingredients, or they purposely choose terrible ingredients that when mixed together can create contamination. So when it comes to sunscreen, there's a lot at risk. You're putting chemicals on your body that are being absorbed into your bloodstream, which we now know are endocrine disruptors. And you're also risking contamination from companies that are putting cheap, quality formulations into sunscreen. And then the last piece of this is the question of reefs. So people often will say, well, I want to make sure I'm buying a sunscreen that is reef safe. What does reef safe mean? Because when you buy bottles, companies will say reef safe on the bottle or it's on their website. but there is no legal definition of reef safe. Every company can define reef safe in their own way. So just finding a sunscreen that says reef safe doesn't necessarily mean that it is free of these toxins. I know that's something that's confusing. The main ingredient, the oxybenzone, which is the most popular sunscreen ingredient, there's a lot of studies showing the impacts on reefs to that specifically. So sometimes companies will use other chemical sunscreen ingredients and claim they're reef safe because it's not using oxybenzone. But there are also a lot of studies out there showing that anything from fragrance, phthalates, parabens, dyes, preservatives, that was it, preservatives also can damage aquatic life and the environment. So unless you have a sunscreen that is truly clean of all endocrine disruptors, you know, the bad preservatives and these chemical sunscreens, it's not actually reef safe. So, okay, now you know the difference between a chemical sunscreen and a physical sunscreen. And now you know that the physical sunscreens with zinc oxide and titanium dioxide are the ones that you want to make sure you are buying. Now let's talk about the thing that I get asked the most, and that is, why are these physical sunscreens white? And what can I do to use a sunscreen that doesn't make me look ghost white? So first of all, if you have not tried Young Living's sunscreen, they fill it with all kinds of skincare ingredients like jojoba oil, lots of oils that are additionally in it that you guys, I'm not even kidding. Our sunscreen, which is the only thing I use on my face, is not just high quality physical sunscreen ingredients. It's pretty much skincare. So if you don't use it already on your face, you should. After spending all day outside with sunscreen and, you know, maybe going to bed without forgetting to wash my face, I wake up and my skin looks amazing. And I feel the same way about our Savvy foundation as well. So if you haven't stocked up on that yet, go do that. Having said that, I know that, you know, not everyone always loves every product that Young Living has. The good news is that companies are catching on, like really catching on. So I have a sunscreen guide, a shopping guide, and I'll put a link in there, that I put out, and I have never seen so many options out there on the market. And I think that that is such an amazing thing for those of us that are in the toxin-free industry or in the holistic health world, and we're trying to live a more natural life, that 6 years ago, you know, 5 years ago even, you had to go hunting for this kind of stuff. And now there are more and more options. And it's because people like you are out there in the world and you are sharing this toxin-free life, and you're telling your friends, and your friends are telling their friends, and their friends are telling their friends. And people are starting to talk about how these chemicals and these toxins in our products are making us sick, and there are better options coming on the market. So that is, for in my mind, because I've been doing this for a really long time, it's so important that we keep doing what we're doing and talking about these issues, because it's working. It's working. The word is getting out, and it's working. So when you're out there shopping, if you don't have Young Living sunscreen, although you should totally go buy it, but if you're at the store and you're headed to the beach, you're headed to the pool, and you just need some sunscreen, turn it around. Make sure it doesn't say fragrance. Make sure doesn't say parabens in it. Make sure there's no bad preservatives. Make sure there's no phenolphthalein in it. And then make sure it's either zinc oxide or titanium dioxide or both, but that there's no other active ingredient in it. And if you do that, you will be golden. So, does anyone have any questions? I talked a lot faster than I thought I was going to. I do that sometimes. Let me see. Oh, SPF. I missed the whole SPF. Just really quickly. I used to work in Europe. For 5 years, I worked doing regulation of toxins in Europe. And in Canada and Japan and Australia, you can't buy sunscreen that has a number on it that is higher than 50. Like, it's illegal to market anything more than 50 because they say it's basically false advertising. It gives people a false sense of security that they can go out into the sun for all day long and not reapply at all. The higher your SPF, the lower the ratio of UVB and UVA protection is. And the higher the SPF, and if it's a chemical sunscreen, the higher the actual amount of that chemical are in it. So they're even more toxic. So if you're buying an SPF 100 chemical sunscreen instead of an SPF 30, you're actually buying more chemicals. You're buying more of the toxins. You're putting a higher concentration of those toxins on your skin. And actually in 2019, the FDA said that they would love to change the rules and propose that no one can be allowed to market a sunscreen over 60. So SPF 30 is really all you need. 50, top. Anything over 50, it's just marketing, just so you know. I have a feeling a lot of you knew that. Let's see if any questions. No, I think that's it. If you want to hear more about the importance of sunshine, dig a little deeper on the sunscreen topics, episode 16 of my podcast, the Detox Dilemma podcast, has more information. Or if you just want to have a place where you can get all of this in one place again, you can go check it out. And I will put some notes in the summary for you. But thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me come talk to this group. Keep doing what you're doing.